My name is Maya Reed, 32 years old, currently the CTO at an AI startup in Seattle. The path to this position wasn't paved with roses. It was built on thousands of sleepless nights in front of a computer screen, countless nerve-wracking pitches to investors, and failures that made me want to give up time and again. I carved out my own life, bought a penthouse in South Lake Union, a reward I see as well-earned for all my sweat and effort. But in my family's eyes, that success was never enough. That evening, I drove to Bellevue for my sister Sloane's 35th birthday. My parents' luxurious apartment overlooked Lake Washington, glowing with lights, a string quartet playing classical music, a long table draped in white linen, and trays of food prepared by a private chef. I contributed too, $300 for vintage burgundy and $500 for the chef's fee. Yet, as always, no one offered me a word of thanks. My mother, Marilyn, was busy adjusting the birthday cake, her eyes passing over me indifferently. In that opulent setting, I realized I felt like an outsider. When Sloane appeared in her designer dress, her bright laughter instantly drew every eye. Everyone praised her charm, her ease. Me? They used me as a point of comparison. Someone said, "If only you could be as warm as Sloane." Another added, "A woman should think more about family than tech." My father, Robert, didn't miss his chance, hugging Sloane and praising her as feminine, graceful, then turning to me with a heavy look, sighing that I was too ambitious. I forced a smile, raised the glass of wine I'd paid for, my throat tight. All the years I'd worked to prove my worth meant nothing in their eyes. When the birthday cake was brought out, the lights dimmed and the music stopped. My father took the microphone, his smile radiant, his voice echoing through the room. "Tonight, we're not just celebrating Sloane's 35th birthday. I have wonderful news. My daughter Maya, out of love for her sister, will gift her South Lake Union penthouse to Sloane so she can start a new chapter." Applause broke out, some even cheered. All eyes turned to me, expecting a nod of compliance. My heart pounded, but my voice was strangely calm. "No." The room fell silent. Some had already pulled out their phones to record. My father's smile vanished, his eyes darkening. Then, suddenly, his heavy hand struck my cheek. The sharp sound echoed under the chandelier. I reeled, a burning sensation spreading across my face. The pearl earring on my ear flew off, rolling a few times before stopping, glinting under the bright light. Gasps and murmurs of shock rippled through the room, but no one stepped forward. I bent down, picked up the earring, and calmly slipped it into my pocket. Looking up, I met Sloane's eyes. She feigned shock, but I caught a flicker of satisfaction in her gaze. I spoke slowly. "Happy birthday." Without another word, I turned and left the lavish room. Whispers followed me like shadows. "She's so cold, so ungrateful." But this time, they carried no weight. The heavy door closed behind me, the long hallway enveloping me in silence. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling, but my voice steady as I called Naomi, my best friend. She answered immediately, her voice full of concern. "Maya, are you okay?" I replied, "My dad just slapped me in front of everyone because I refused to give Sloane the penthouse." Naomi paused, then said firmly, "Call Ruth, only she can shut this down." I took a deep breath and dialed Ruth Whitmore, my grandmother, who still held the family's financial reins. My heart raced as I pressed call. After 3 rings, her voice came through, low and sharp. "Maya, I already know. Wait for me. 30 minutes. I froze. She knew? A chill ran down my spine. I realized the real storm was just beginning. That night, I left the party with a red mark on my cheek, the pearl earring in my pocket, and a cold void in my heart. But in that moment, I also realized I could no longer stay silent. I'd been pushed past my limits too many times, and it was time to stand up for myself. Have you ever felt dismissed, pressured, or robbed of what's rightfully yours by your own family? If you've ever felt out of place in your own home, Drop a comment below so we can share our stories. 30 minutes after the call, I leaned against the stone wall in the hallway, the red mark on my cheek cooling. The glass door slid open. Ruth stepped in. She was petite, but the tap of her silver cane on the floor rang like a hammer. The chandelier's light fell on her silver hair, cold and bright. "Robert Reed," she called. No microphone needed. "Explain why you just struck your daughter's face." The room froze. Robert clutched the microphone, forcing a laugh. "Mom, it's a misunderstanding. No, just." Her voice was steel, flat. "In front of guests, you used violence to force your daughter to give up property she earned. In the Whitmore house, we call that cowardice." I stood at the door, watching my father's shoulders slump. My mother, Marilyn, gripped Sloane's hand tightly. In Sloane's eyes, I saw not fear but irritation at being exposed. Ruth tapped her cane. 5 minutes. Find Maya's pearl earring. If you don't, I'll handle it. I held the earring in my pocket, the cool pearl nestled in my hand like a steady pulse. Ruth glanced at me briefly, her look telling me she knew everything but was letting them learn their lesson. Marilyn bent down, pulling Sloane. "Check under the table." Gowns swept the floor, red-painted nails searched under chairs. Robert gestured to brighten the lights. Phones were raised, red recording dots blinked. "It's live," someone whispered. 4 minutes, Ruth said. "Marilyn, what did you teach your daughters by enabling insatiable demands?" My mother flushed. "It's family business. I just wanted Sloane to have a fresh start." "A start not built on theft," Ruth cut in, her eyes landing on Robert. "And for years you've taught Maya her worth is only to prop up your pride." Robert pressed his lips. "I just wanted her to think of family." "What family?" she asked. "A group that takes more than it gives? Praises the dependent for being warm, punishes the independent for being ambitious?" She took a short breath. "This room lacks respect, not warmth." A guest pulled out a harmless piece of glass. Sloane snatched it like evidence. 3 minutes, Ruth reminded. In my hand, the pearl lay still like an answer. I didn't need them to find me anymore. I'd found myself. "Grandma," I called softly. She shook her head slightly, as if to say, "Let them learn fully." She faced the room. "Maya bought that house with her labor. No one has the right to demand she gift it for pride, envy, or laziness. I've let this go on too long. Tonight, I'm calling my lawyer. My will is changing. All assets I control, real estate, investments, shares, go to Maya Reed. No co-management, no shady trusts. Clear?" "Clear?" echoed off the crystal ceiling, falling into silence. Robert's hand shook. Marilyn stammered. "Mom, you can't—" "I can," Ruth said, "and I will." The phone cameras wobbled, then steadied. Viewer counts skyrocketed. The mask of elegance cracked. 2 minutes, Ruth pressed. "Sloane, how long will you stand on someone else's shoulders? Their kindness or your own feet?" Sloane's jaw tightened. I saw her shrink, not the star of the family drama anymore, but an adult yet to learn accountability. "Enough," Robert tried, his voice strained. "Mom, you're going too far." "No too far." Ruth lifted her chin. "You struck your daughter in front of 30 people." Then, to me, "Maya, come here." I stepped into the center of the room. Ruth opened her palm. I placed the pearl in it. She studied it a moment, then handed it back. "You keep it. No one needs to find it anymore." Her silver cane tapped. "Time's up." The candles on the cake flickered out. Someone turned on a flashlight, as if to keep searching, but no one bent down. The test was over. Not about finding an object, but finding boundaries. "The party ends here," Ruth said. "Those who owe apologies know who they are." To Robert, "Put the microphone down, go home." Robert hesitated, then set the microphone down, the metal clinking dryly against wood. I turned away. The scent of expensive perfume mixed with candle smoke stung my eyes. Stepping into the hallway, I met the cold night breeze. In the elevator, I saw the fading red mark on my cheek. My eyes shone with a decision that landed true. A grain of sand, hurt long enough, becomes a pearl. Tonight, I closed the old shell. I drove back to Seattle on I-405, taillights stretching into a long red line. I turned off the radio. No more rehearsing what I should say to keep the peace. No more drafting excuses. A space to breathe opened in my chest. From now on, I'd stop trying to please anyone. The penthouse greeted me with the warm scent of wood, the steady hum of the air conditioner. I poured a glass of water, set the pearl earring on the stone countertop, where it lay like a relic of a night that changed course. Outside, South Lake Union was dark, dotted with the soft glow of boat lights. I cracked the window, letting the lake-scented breeze flood in. My phone buzzed. "Naomi, you okay?" I typed, "Fine. Grandma showed up. Everything flipped." Naomi replied, "Proud of you." I smiled. The silence wasn't an emptiness anymore. It was a boundary. Notifications suddenly exploded. The app icon pulsed like fireworks. I opened an alert. "You've been tagged in a live video." The first frame showed the crystal chandelier. Scrolling down revealed my face, Robert's hand, Ruth's silver cane. Caption: Father slaps daughter for not giving up house? View counts surged like a thermometer. Comments poured in. "Unbelievable. I'm with Maya. Boycott his construction firm. Family violence is unacceptable." An email flashed from my company's PR team. "Maya, when you're free, we need to talk." The pearl lay still on the counter. I touched it, my skin cooling. I thought of Grandma calling her lawyer, the signatures, the doors that would close and others that would open. I no longer sought anyone's understanding. I just wanted the truth to stand tall. Across the city, Lake Washington shimmered, reminding me, storms pass, leaving only the shores you draw yourself. Tonight, I'd drawn a shore. Sharp, clear, non-negotiable. If you found this story gripping, comment Y. If not, comment N. I want to hear from you, not to win favor, but to know if this story resonates with those who've had to set boundaries in their own families. They say family storms settle in a few days, but this one broke free from the four walls of our home. It swept the Reeds and Whitmores into its eye, under the scrutiny of thousands of strangers. Just one night after the birthday party, the clip of my father slapping me spread online at breakneck speed. It started with a few dozen shares, then thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Comments flooded in. "Unbelievable. This is public family violence. That father's lost all credibility." Some dug up my father's construction company address, screenshot Yelp, and called for one-star reviews. His LinkedIn turned into a battlefield. Old clients canceled contracts, partners cut ties. The reputation and honor he'd boasted about for years turned to ash with a few clicks. My mother, Marilyn, didn't fare better. A familiar face at Bellevue's fundraising galas, often invited as a table host, she was now flooded with emails withdrawing invitations and pausing partnerships. Her close friends, who once held her hand on dance floors, now avoided her like the plague. A photo of her beaming beside Sloane's birthday cake hit the tabloids with a mocking caption, "The complicit mother." I imagined her reading it, quietly folding the paper, her sharp eyes now tinged with sorrow. As for Sloane, the party's star, she became gossip fodder in wedding planning groups. Her fiancé's family, once proud of their high society bride, abruptly postponed the wedding indefinitely. A mutual friend told me the reason was not wanting to tie into a family scandal. Sloane called me twice, but I didn't answer. I knew she'd either cry for forgiveness or blame me for blowing things up, and I had no patience left to listen. Within 2 weeks, everything my parents had built on appearances crumbled. Then, one afternoon, my penthouse doorbell rang. I opened the door. My parents stood there. Robert no longer looked commanding. His shoulders slumped, his eyes sunken, far from the man who'd boomed orders through a microphone. My mother, always meticulous, now appeared barefaced, mascara smudged from tears. "Maya, we need to talk," my father began, his voice hoarse. I crossed my arms. "I don't recall inviting you." "We were wrong," my mother whispered, her eyes pleading. "The pressure, the appearances, we went too far. We're sorry." The sorry felt hollow, like tissue paper too thin to cover a deep cut. I replied curtly, "Apologies don't rebuild trust." The door stayed open, but my heart had closed. After they left, I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. Should I feel satisfied, watching those who belittled me now judged by society. But the thrill of revenge didn't soothe the void I carried. I thought of Naomi, the only one who'd stood by me from the start, no proof or inheritance needed. I texted her, "Need to see you." Naomi came over, bringing hot coffee. She sat across from me, looked me in the eye, and said, "You don't need to be like them to be accepted. That clip, society's judging your parents, but you have to define yourself. Don't let hate decide." Her words echoed like a mirror reflecting truth. I'd spent too long chasing validation from a family that didn't want to give it. The next day, Ruth called me to meet at Pike Place Market. Amid the smell of fresh fish, bustling calls, and coffee from a roadside cafe, she handed me a sealed envelope. "This is the power of attorney and revised will. All assets I control are now yours," she said, her eyes sharp but warm. My hand trembled holding the envelope. "Grandma, are you sure?" She placed a hand on my shoulder. "Maya, you stood up when a whole room tried to force you to kneel. You're worthy." Then, lowering her voice, she said firmly, "But remember, forgiveness isn't opening the door to let the storm back in. It's building a fence and opening a small gate. Those who respect you can pass through. Those who don't, stop." I looked out at the gray-blue sea shimmering under the sun, thinking of my parents, of my mother's redrimmed eyes at my door. A fence and a small gate. Maybe that was how I could avoid becoming them, avoid letting bitterness consume me. Back home, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my lawyer. Subject: Draft Boundary Agreement. I knew I'd chosen my path. Not revenge, not surrender, but a boundary to protect myself. If you want to hear more stories and struggles like mine and relate to them, check out my previous videos on this channel. The pen on my desk felt like a key. Either I'd open the door I chose or let others keep walking in without knocking. I signed, not out of anger but for peace with boundaries. In the glass-walled meeting room overlooking South Lake Union, Robert no longer looked imposing, his hands clasped together. Marilyn was silent. The lawyer slid a stack of papers forward. Boundary agreement, 5 points, clear. I read them like driving fence posts. 1. No one interferes with or claims my property. 2. Communication must be respectful. Sarcasm, attacks, or manipulation end the meeting, with a 7-day contact pause. 3. All meetings must be scheduled in advance, in public, max 90 minutes. 4. My parents attend at least 12 family therapy sessions in 6 weeks with confirmation. 5. I don't pay debts or fund lifestyles. I only offer support within safe limits I set. Robert gave a dry laugh. "You think we're after your money?" I replied, "I think boundaries preserve family longer than promises." Marilyn asked, "Is there a softer way?" I said, "Soft is a slap at a party. This document is kind. It shows the way." I signed first. Robert stared long, then signed, his signature wavering before steadying. Marilyn's lips trembled like learning a new language, then she signed. The paper's rustle sounded like wind through a newly built fence, strong enough to block a storm. I handed over an envelope. "Here's the therapy schedule in Capitol Hill. Tuesdays and Fridays, 7 p.m., 12 sessions. I've paid the deposit. You cover the rest." Then a second sheet. Part-time job listings, repair crew in Renton, library assistant, plant shop sales, open interview schedules, contact numbers here. Next step, minimum safety. I drove to Renton, to a quiet complex with red maples. A one-bedroom apartment, L-shaped kitchen, window facing an inner courtyard. The landlord, an Ethiopian woman, spoke warmly but clearly. I said, "I'll pay 6 months up front, but the lease is in Robert and Marilyn Reed's names. I'm not co-renting or guaranteeing." She nodded. "I like clear people." I wired the deposit, chose basic furniture, sturdy bed, good mattress, small table, 2 chairs, standing lamp, thick curtains, cookware. I added a first aid kit, electric kettle, repair tools. I taped a bus schedule to the fridge and left a stack of job listing cards in a drawer. On the drive back, I called Naomi. "House is done. I said. She laughed. One fence, one small gate. I laughed too. Peace smelled like fresh wood and a softly closing lock. That night, I tidied the penthouse. I printed a still from the video, the moment the pearl rolled under the chandelier, framed it in oak, and hung it opposite the kitchen. Not to dwell on pain, but to name and contain it. Once a memory has a frame, it stops haunting your home. I stepped back, feeling the apartment lighten, like an invisible window flung open. I brewed mint tea, set my phone face down, letting silence settle comfortably. The next morning, I met my financial advisor. I want to start the Ruth Whitmore Scholarship Fund, I said, for women in IT at King County Community Colleges. We designed a lean structure, small trust, transparent criteria, quarterly reports, a board of me, one professor, one community rep. I sent letters to 3 major schools asking for candidate recommendations. 2 weeks later, we chose the first 2. Lynn, 19, from an immigrant family, studied cybersecurity by day, worked at a faux shop by night. She showed me her script for detecting weak passwords, her eyes bright as a small bulb. Carmen, 21, had dropped out to care for her disabled brother, now back, aiming to build a medication reminder app for caregivers. I invited them to intern part-time at my company, 15 hours a week, clear pay, specific tasks. Lynn joined the internal security team. Carmen, the user experience group. We had lunch at a soup spot near the office. I asked their biggest fears. Lynn said, "I'm scared of being ignored because my voice is soft." Carmen said, "I'm scared of having to quit again." I told them, "Here, we work with fear, not for it." They nodded. I realized the scholarship wasn't just money, it was companionship. Friday evening, I drafted an email to my parents, attaching the lease in their names, receipt for 6 months paid, apartment photos, bus map, therapy schedule, and job listings. Last line. This is a safety ticket, not a throne. Meet me at the first therapy session, next Tuesday, 7:00 p.m. More than 10 minutes late, the meeting's canceled. I reread, cut fluff, kept clarity. Hitting send, I exhaled like I'd shut a door with my own strength. That weekend, Naomi brought lavender and vanilla ice cream. We sat on the balcony, the city twinkling post-rain. She looked at the framed pearl. Beautiful. I said, "Beautiful because it's settled." She asked, "You scared they'll bail halfway?" I nodded. "Yes, but I'm ready if the gate needs to close." Naomi touched my shoulder. That silence was support. Tuesday came fast as the breath. I arrived at the therapy center 15 minutes early. The lobby smelled of mint tea, soft piano notes in the air. A painting of an open gate to a garden hung on the wall. I sat, holding the rent-an apartment key in my palm. The door opened. Robert and Marilyn stepped in, dressed simply, eyes averted. The therapist ushered us into a room, saying softly, "Here, only uncomfortable honesty works." I glanced at the clock, 1 minute to 7. Outside, Seattle rain streaked the glass. A fence was up. Now was the time to test the small gate. Would they step through with respect, or crash in with old habits? The therapy room door closed. I took a deep breath, ready for either answer. I once thought those who command and take from others never change. But then, on a gray, damp Seattle morning, I read a post that stopped me cold. On LinkedIn, my father's profile read, "I am Robert Reed. I was wrong." He wrote at length, admitting his violence, his bias, and that his actions had destroyed the reputation he'd built over years. The attached photo showed him in a reflective vest, hard hat, holding a bucket of mortar. My father, once commanding a microphone, now worked as a laborer on a repair crew, his back bent, forehead beaded with sweat. A man who stood on podiums now stood on scaffolding, using sweat instead of excuses. I didn't share or comment. I just sat, realizing that sometimes public shame is the costliest medicine. Marilyn changed too. She left the charity galas, withdrew from organizing boards. In the small Renton apartment, she learned to live simply. I was surprised by a photo she sent, a slightly cracked but golden pumpkin pie. Her message: my first time baking from scratch. Not perfect, but mine. I smiled, recalling the woman who once saw cooking as beneath her. Maybe leaving the loud stage let her find value in small things. We continued family therapy twice weekly. At first, the air was thick as cold fog. My parents dodged, blamed, but with the therapist's guidance, conversations softened. We tackled the thorniest issue, their favoritism toward Sloane. I said plainly, growing up, I always felt I had to carry the load while Sloane just had to smile. My father bowed his head. My mother choked up. One session my father slipped, raising his voice. But he stopped, breathed, apologized. It was the first time I saw him step back. In March, my company won the Innovation in Responsible AI Award. The ceremony was at a convention center, lights blazing like stars. I walked on stage in a deep blue dress, heart racing but voice steady. In the audience, Ruth and Naomi sat front row, eyes proud. My parents were there too, but in the back, quiet, not pushing forward. As I held the crystal trophy, I caught them clapping, slow but genuine. After the ceremony, my mother approached, holding a small velvet box. She opened it, a new pair of pearl earrings. Her voice cracked. "These won't fall." I took them, feeling both strange and warm. I hadn't fully forgiven, but I acknowledged one thing. She was trying to speak through actions. Then fall arrived, with the scent of maple leaves and cold rain. I sent an email before Thanksgiving at the Penthouse, listing rules clearly. Times, boundaries, no microphones, no speeches, no talk of money or old duties. Violations would end the meal. That evening, the table was set simply. Naomi sat beside me, the two scholarship mentees joined, eyes full of admiration. Ruth had the seat of honor, her hands trembling, but her gaze sharp. My father quietly cleared plates after dinner, water splashing his shirt, no complaints. My mother brought her pumpkin pie, slightly cracked but fragrant. No one gave speeches, no one grabbed a microphone, just enough laughter, enough silence. As everyone left, I stood by the glass table, looking at two pairs of earrings. The old pearls, one that fell under the chandelier, now framed. The new pair, in the velvet box from my mother. Side by side, like a story unfinished but unfolding. I realized the fence was up, but the gate was opening. I'll always remember that morning when Seattle's early winter light poured through the penthouse glass, illuminating the framed photo on the wall. For the first time in years, I woke without my chest tightening from family pressure. The air carried the scent of golden waffles, the coffee maker's soft hum, and lavender from the balcony like a gentle greeting. The penthouse, once a bunker where I braced for attack, had truly become home. I opened my laptop, reading the Ruth Whitmore Scholarship Fund report. Simple numbers. Lynn and Carmen, the first mentees, completed their internships at my company. Lynn, soft-spoken but resolute, now presented her weak password detection report to the cybersecurity team, eyes bright as a bulb. Carmen, who feared dropping out again, launched a prototype medication reminder app for caregivers. I looked at their end-of-term presentation photos, eyes shining, and remembered myself at 20, anxious but daring. I understood. Passing the torch isn't a slogan. It's action carried forward. Family therapy continued steadily. I didn't expect perfection, but I saw patience. Robert, the man who struck me, now paused to breathe before speaking, sometimes taking 10 seconds to find the right words. Marilyn stopped projecting blame, sharing her feelings. "I'm scared of being left behind," she admitted, eyes red. When they slipped, tension flared, but they returned, apologized. To me, that mattered more than any contract. Sloane changed too. No more parties, gowns, or lavish wedding plans. She enrolled in graphic design at a community college. One afternoon, her email surprised me. An attached poster for a small event with a note. "You inspired me to start over, not expecting instant forgiveness, just hoping to stand on my own." I reread it, feeling something settle inside. I learned to name my emotions: sadness, anger, pity, and finally, calm. Calm, because I understood forgiveness doesn't mean erasing the past. It means building a sturdy fence and opening a small gate for those who respect it. That Saturday, Naomi came over with blueberry scones. We sat on the balcony, the city sparkling post-rain. She asked, "You scared they'll mess up again?" I answered, "Yes, but the fence is up. If they break it, the gate closes. If they learn to pass through, it stays open." Naomi clinked her coffee mug against mine. I knew I had another family, one of choice. As evening fell, I stood by the glass wall with the two pairs of earrings. The old pearls, framed, a testament to public humiliation and trampled boundaries. The new pair, in the velvet box, a sign of clumsy but real efforts to mend. I touched the glass frame, cold but solid. In that moment, I knew I'd found safety in my own choices. I was no longer the woman trembling under a chandelier, awaiting judgment. I was the author of my story, who learned to build a fence, open a small gate, and move forward with peace. The storm had passed, and I, like those pearls, had found my place. Looking back, the most valuable thing wasn't money or status, but dignity and boundaries to protect myself. I learned love isn't unconditional endurance. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, but building a fence and opening a small gate for those who respect it. I also realized family isn't just blood. It's those who apologize, change, and walk with you in accountability. When I chose calm over revenge, justice came through clear actions, and peace returned like the scent of morning waffles. I hope this story reaches those who felt lost in their own homes. You deserve to be heard, to be safe, to shape your life. If you relate, leave a comment, share a moment that made you stronger, and follow for more stories. Thank you for staying until the end. Let's keep healing with respect and responsibility.